We are continuing our study in the life of Jesus, and there are three things in a kind of a set that we're looking at right now. Last week, we looked at Jesus calling his first disciples. Tonight, we're going to look at his first miracle, and then next week, we're going to look at his first, maybe only, but his first cleansing of the temple. So, all of this is from the Gospel of John, and our story tonight is in John chapter 2, where Jesus turns water into wine. I'm going to read you the story, and then I'm going to speak about it a little bit, and I think maybe there will be some interesting insights that perhaps you've never thought about or never run across before. So, John chapter 2, verse 1. On the third day there was a wedding in Cana in Galilee, and the mother of Jesus was there. Jesus and his disciples were also invited to the wedding. When the wine ran short, the mother of Jesus said to him, "They have no wine." And Jesus said to her, "Woman, how does your concern affect me? My hour has not yet come." His mother said to the servers, it seems almost a little bit like Mary just ignores what he just said. His mother said to the servers, "Do whatever he tells you." Now there were 6 stone jars there for Jewish ceremonial washing. Remember that. There were 6 stone jars there for Jewish ceremonial washing. Each held 20 to 30 gallons. Jesus told them, "Fill the jars with water." So they filled them to the brim. Then he told them, "Now draw out some of the water and take it to the head waiter." So they took it. And when the head waiter tasted the water that had become wine, without knowing where it came from, although the servers who had drawn the water knew, the head waiter called the bridegroom and said to him, "Everyone serves good wine first, and then when people have drunk freely, an inferior one. But you have kept the good wine until now." Jesus did this at the beginning of his signs. Important. At the beginning of his signs in Cana of Galilee, and so revealed his glory. And the disciples began to believe in him. So, you just heard the story. Mary is at a wedding. Jesus is there. So are the disciples. They run out of wine. Mary says they're out of wine. Jesus says, "What do you want me to do about it?" Mary tells the servers, "Do whatever he tells you." Jesus says, "Fill the jars with water." They fill the jars with water. It turns into wine, and the head waiter is amazed at the quality of wine. So, let's jump in. Verse 11 says, Jesus did this as the beginning of his signs. And so it's significant. These signs are significant. They signify something. And as we have already seen in John's Gospel, we saw this last week, in John's Gospel, one of the things that is there is a contrast between the old covenant and the new, the old way and the new, the temple and the body of Christ, the manna and the bread from heaven, which is Jesus. You see all throughout the Gospel of John, which again focuses on Jesus' ministry around Jerusalem and has a deep, clear understanding of the goings on of temple worship and the feast days and life in Jerusalem. With that theme in mind, this transition from the old covenant to the new, Jesus being the fulfillment of the old covenant. With these things in mind, let's look at this first sign that Jesus puts up in relation to the Old Covenant, the Old Testament, the old way of doing things, old Israel. First of all, this was at a wedding. Now, this is a true story. It really was at a wedding, but it also serves to make a point for people that look a little deeper, that pay a little more attention. In the Old Testament, in the Jewish mind, weddings were symbols of the Messianic kingdom. A wedding was a symbol of the arrival of the Messiah, the life of the Messiah, the reign of the Messiah. That just from the get-go, that's been what weddings partially were. Yes, they were about a couple getting married, starting a new life together, but they also had something to do with understanding the Messianic kingdom. Isaiah chapter 62, verse 4. No longer will they call you, this is a prophet speaking for God to the people of Israel, the bride of God, right? So, no longer will they call you deserted or name your land desolate, but you will be called Hephzibah, which means to delight in her. And your land will be called Beulah, which means married. For the Lord will take delight in you, and your land will be married. As a young man marries a maiden, so will your builder marry you. As a bridegroom rejoices over his bride, so will your God rejoice over you. So Isaiah speaks of the coming of Messiah and the Messianic kingdom as a wedding. Israel will be called married, be the delight of her husband. God will be her husband. The New Testament, and that's not the only place in the Old Testament where you see that kind of analogy, but the New Testament carries it as well. In Matthew chapter 22, verse 2, Jesus said, the kingdom of heaven is like a king who prepared a wedding banquet for his son. Revelation 19, verse 9. Blessed are those who are invited to the wedding supper of the Lamb. Revelation 21, 2. I saw the holy city, the New Jerusalem, coming down out of heaven from God, prepared as a bride, beautifully adorned for her husband. So yes, this is a wedding event. But I think it's interesting that Jesus chose his first sign, first miracle, his first signification of who he was. He chose for that to happen at a wedding. In light of everything we've just said about the significance of weddings in Jewish thought and the tie to the Messianic kingdom, Jesus chooses to inaugurate his ministry by a wedding miracle. They had no wine. Let's talk about wine for a minute. Contrary to a lot of American fundamentalist Christianity, wine in the Bible is seen as a blessing. It's seen as a good thing. It's seen as a provision of God. And by the way, if we have any folk watching this that are of that mindset that Jesus turned the water into grape juice, that just doesn't hold up. No one would say, oh, you saved the best grape juice until last. Most people serve the cheaper grape, the best grape juice first, and then they serve the lesser grape juice. But you, wow, you served the best grape juice last. That doesn't even make sense. It was wine. So, again, wine is seen as a blessing in the Messianic reign. Let me read you some scriptures. Psalm 104, verse 14. He makes the grass to grow for the cattle and plants for man to cultivate, bringing forth food from the earth, wine that gladdens the heart of man, oil to make his face shine, and bread to sustain his heart. One of the blessings that God provides, according to the psalmist, is wine. Jeremiah 31, verse 12. They will come and shout for joy on the heights of Zion. They will rejoice in the bounty of the Lord, the grain, the new wine and the oil, the young flocks and the herds. They will be well-watered gardens, and they will sorrow no more. So again, the abundance of good wine, part of the messianic expectation. Hosea chapter 14, verse 7. Men will dwell again in his shade. He will flourish like the grain. He will blossom like the vine, and his fame will be like the wine of Lebanon. One more Old Testament reference. Amos chapter 9, verse 13. The days are coming, declares the Lord, when the reaper will be overtaken by the plowman, and the planter by the one treading grapes. New wine will drip from the mountains and flow from all the hills. I will bring back the exiled people of Israel. They will rebuild the ruined cities and live in them. They will plant vineyards and drink their wine. They will make gardens and eat their fruit. So, Old Testament, weddings hearken to the Messianic kingdom. The abundance of good wine hearken to the anticipation of the Messianic kingdom. Jump forward to the miracle we're looking at. Mary says they have no more wine. They have no more wine. Now, you can say that just happened and they had no more wine. Or you can say, wait, John is getting at something deeper here. Yes, it's a true story. Yes, it really happened. But there's a message behind this. There are layers to be explored. They have no more wine is a clear depiction of the sad situation of that time, of that day. The glory of God had departed from Israel. The people had by and large abandoned God as God called them to walk with him, and walked instead in a joyless religious life encrusted with man-made tradition. So this story, at least symbolically, refers to the status of Israel. And it becomes clear that John is saying this when he says there were 6 pots, 6 empty pots. He could have stopped with that. There were 6 empty pots, about 20 to 30 gallons apiece. But he throws in this line, there were 6 empty pots used by the Jews for ceremonial washing. This washing was this intense, complicated, legalistic event that the Jews observed. Let me read you from the commentary of William Barclay describing this washing. Strict Jews wash the hands before a meal and between each course. First, the hand was held upright and the water poured over it in such a way that it ran down to the wrist. Then the hands were held pointing down, and the water was poured in such a way that it ran from the wrists to the fingertips. This was done with each hand in turn, and then each palm was cleansed by rubbing it with the fist of the other hand. The Jewish ceremonial law insisted that this should be done not only at the beginning of a meal, but also between courses. If it was not done, the hands were technically unclean. It was for this that these great stone jars of water stood there. So when John talks about the stone waters and throws in the fact that they were for Jewish ceremonial cleansing, he's saying something here. He's saying this Jewish tradition, this Jewish encrusted religion, which is empty on the inside. It's dry, it's empty. It needs filling. Jesus came to fill up empty pots. He came to transform the religion of the day. So into this sad situation, both literally at the wedding and figuratively for the whole of Israel, Jesus transforms the barrenness of ceremonial water into the joyous, delightful, tasty wine. And not just a little bit, not just enough for everybody to have a cup. Essentially, he made 150 gallons of the best wine the world's ever seen at that wedding. Two things happened as a result of this miracle. It says that Jesus revealed his glory. The Hebrew word for glory, which is not used here, is kabade. The Greek word is doxa. But the Hebrew word for glory, which is an important word in Jewish understanding, goes all the way back through the Old Testament, and they saw the glory of the Lord. They saw the glory of the Lord in a cloud. They saw the glory of the Lord in a pillar of fire. The glory of the Lord came down. That's not just some glow. That's not just some brightness. The Hebrew word, kabade, means weightiness. It means tangibility. It means something that you can reach out and touch, something you can hold. It means here Jesus revealed the weightiness of who he was, of who he was called to be, what his ministry was. He reveals the substance of himself, who he really was, showed forth for the first time here. I mean, you had things like, the prophetic thing that he did with Nathanael. I saw you sitting under the tree. We looked at that last week. You have the voice from heaven at his baptism. You have things happening. But this is the first time in the now 30-year life of Jesus that he reveals his glory, the weightiness, the tangibility, the substance of who he really is. Every time we read, and we're going to read it in John more than once, every time we read about the glory of God being revealed in Jesus, it's one of those high water marks in the life of Jesus where he shows forth, manifests who he really is and what his ministry is about. But the second thing, the final thing that we read in this story, as a result of this miracle, his glory was revealed, but it goes on and says, and his disciples began to believe in him. Now, on some level, they already believed in him. I mean, we found the one. We found the Messiah. We found the one the prophets talk about. They've gone and picked their brothers to come and follow along. We found the one. Come and see. But on another level, they don't understand the fullness of who Messiah is, what Messiah is all about. And Jesus is in the process of manifesting that, and layer by layer, step by step, as he manifests that, they begin to believe, and they continue to believe, and they believe more and more, and their faith is increased each time they witness his majesty. But this is the first time they witness it, when he begins transforming the old into the new. Amen.